Hey guys, welcome back once again on this channel. Today I would like to show you how to configure a remote desktop on a Ubuntu server that is installed on Azure. I already have a server that is running. It is running on Azure, and this is my IP address. So when I copy this IP address and try to connect using remote desktop, and I paste the IP address for the server in the Windows remote desktop connection, and this is my username. When I try to connect, you see the connection has failed because the system is telling us that remote access to the server is not enabled. Why? Remote desktop, especially the RDP protocol on Linux server, it doesn't come pre-installed. So we have to first install the Xlrdp protocol on a Linux server, and in this case our server, so that we enable the feature for remote desktop connection to work. However, it's not just configuring the Xlrdp protocol on the server. We also need to install something that is known as the desktop environment on the server. So the desktop environment is what will allow us to have the graphical user interface remotely for the server without also not installing the desktop environment on that server. Even if we have the Xlrdp protocol running on the server, we will not be able to connect it still. So we need a graphical user interface, and in this example, we are going to choose Gnome as our preferred choice of the desktop environment to install on our server. Now, to install the Xlrdp protocol. The Xlrdp protocol is the type of protocol which we install on a server or a Linux server like Ubuntu, and offers the functionality of using Windows remote desktop connection. Now, to do that, we have to go back to our server, and this is my server on Ubuntu, and copy the IP address for that server. Then come back here on my local machine. This is my local machine. So I need to use the SSH client on my local machine. Let me expand, enlarge a little bit. We need to use the SSH client on my local machine to log into our remote server, and then we install the Xlrdp protocol on that server. So how do we do that? As I told you, we copy the IP address for our server from Azure, and then come back on our local machine and open the SSH client. So we type SSH, the username for our remote server. So SSH, we type SSH, the username for our server, for this case is yuga.comp, and then the IP address for our server, which is that one. So how did we get this IP address? You just go back in your Azure portal and find the IP address, the public IP address for the server, and then copy it, and here we are. Now enter. So the system is asking me to put a password for the server. So I have the password. Okay, so now we've logged into our server, and you can see that we are now having a remote access to the remote shell of our server. So what we have to first do is to update, before we even install the Xlrdp protocol, is to update the server. So sudo apt update. So this one helps us to make sure our Linux instance is running the latest libraries or tools or dependencies. Now the system is telling us 38 packages. I think it's already updated. Now what we have to do is to clear, and then we install the Xlrdp protocol. How do we do that? So we just do sudo apt get install Xlrdp, hit enter. So the system is installing, the Xlrdp protocol. So it's now telling us the Xlrdp protocol is installed. How do we verify that? We can verify that by going back and type sudo system to verify that the Xlrdp protocol or the Xlrdp server is running. We type sudo systemctl status Xlrdp. Okay, so the Xlrdp service is running, it is active. So it is now telling us it is active. So does this mean we can now connect to the server? No, this doesn't mean that we can connect to the server. We have a long way to go. Of course, don't worry, it's not so much, but we have a little bit of a long way to go. We need to configure what I told you earlier when we were starting this video, to configure the desktop environment that will give us the access to the graphical user interface of our server. So basically, when we install the desktop environment, we are installing the GUI, the graphical user interface, to the server. Now, we want to be able to access something like this on our server from a remote computer using our local machine. Now, to do that, there are different interfaces. There are different graphical user interfaces, or the desktop environment for the servers in Linux. But our preferred choice is to go with Gnome. And Gnome looks like this, a little bit like this. So how do we install Gnome? To install Gnome, we will have to install Gnome. For us to install Gnome, this is what we have to do. Let me expand a little bit again. To install Gnome, what we have to do is there are different steps we have to install. Now, to the first step, we can use this command to have the light version of Gnome. However, we want to have the full version of Gnome. So we will first install this and install Tessel, and again install the dependence that is required to give us all the full features. Now I can copy this command, go back, let me first log in, SSH, okay. So to install Gnome, this is the command we are going to use: sudo apt install gnome session gdm3. So we first copy that and then paste. Make sure you are logged into your server. You must have the root permission to access the server. So that is very important. Don't forget about that. So we hit enter. Type Y, which is yes. So this dependency is installing, so it may take some time and we need to be patient as it finishes to install. Okay, let's clear that. The second step is to install Tessel. So this is the command that we use. Paste. So sudo apt install Tessel. Type Y, which is yes, and then wait. Okay. So the final step is to install the last dependency, which is this one. I'm going to leave all these commands in the description below so you can find them there. Paste. Okay, so this is our last package that we are installing, and once it installs, it is installing all the features that we need to access the graphical user interface of our server from a local machine. It may take some bit of time, so we need to have to be patient. Okay, so now we are saying that the installation is finished. Our installation for Gnome desktop environment is finished. So what next? What we have to do is to go on our local machine and find the remote desktop client, and then we will have to get the IP address for our server. This one, you must note it somewhere, and then paste it. You also put the username for the server, and in this case I use the yoga comp, and then connect. Yes. And then we put a password for our server, the login credentials. Okay, so now we have successfully installed a desktop environment on our server. We have been able to do that by first installing the Xlrdp protocol and then installing Gnome to achieve what we are seeing right now. So what we are seeing right now is the desktop environment of our remote server that is configured on Azure. So you can do that. You can also do it. Alright. You try it out yourself. I'll leave all the commands in the description below. If you have any question, you comment down there. Please like and subscribe to this channel. I will really appreciate if you do that. I need about 1,000 subscribers. So thank you so much for watching this video.